In a vehicle, engine movement passes through the clutch, the gearbox, the axle, and the front drive shafts to arrive at the wheels. This lesson will cover the clutch. The clutch is used to transmit movement from the engine to the gearbox. The clutch is also used to temporarily interrupt the transmission of movement from the engine to the gearbox. The clutch is located between the manual gearbox and the engine. To ensure correct vehicle operation, the clutch performs the following three roles. Engage the clutch when starting the vehicle. Release the clutch when changing gears. And release the clutch in order to immobilize the vehicle without stopping the engine. Let's take a closer look at these three roles. The first role of the clutch is to ensure progressive coupling between the engine and the gearbox when the ignition is switched on. This allows an immobilized vehicle to speed up in gradual fashion. The second role of the clutch consists of uncoupling the gearbox from the engine when changing gears. Click on the clutch pedal. The gearbox and the engine are uncoupled when changing gears. The third role of the clutch consists of uncoupling the gearbox from the engine so that the vehicle can be immobilized without switching off the engine. The gearbox and the engine are uncoupled when the vehicle is immobilized. The clutch system includes the following components: the flywheel, the clutch plate, and a mechanism that contains the diaphragm and the mobile plate. You can move the mouse cursor over the components to identify them. Now let's look at the details of the function of each clutch system component. The flywheel is secured to the crankshaft and includes the engine start crown. The flywheel provides a friction surface for one side of the clutch plate. The clutch mechanism is screwed into the flywheel. There are two types of flywheels: single flywheels and dual shock absorber flywheels. The dual shock absorber flywheel is composed of two flywheels that are connected to each other by their center. With the help of springs, the two flywheels absorb engine torque variations via the rotation of one flywheel with regard to the other. Engine movement is transmitted to the clutch plate according to a friction principle. The role of the clutch plate is to transmit movement to the movement input shaft of the gearbox. The type of clutch plate used for single flywheels includes springs to absorb torque variations and jerking when the clutch is maneuvered. The type of clutch plate used for dual shock absorber flywheels need not include these springs, since they are already integrated in the flywheels. The mobile plate is the mechanism component which is in contact with the clutch plate. Click on the clutch pedal to see the clutch plate press itself against the flywheel. The mobile plate presses the clutch plate against the flywheel and also provides a friction surface for the other side of the clutch plate. The diaphragm is a spring in the shape of a conical plate, which includes radial slots that allow it to be compressed. The diaphragm exerts pressure on the mobile plate to press the clutch plate against the flywheel. the mechanism is screwed into the flywheel. It is composed of the diaphragm and the mobile plate. The mechanism presses the clutch plate against the flywheel, with help from the mobile plate and the diaphragm. When the clutch is in clutch-engaged position, the clutch plate is compressed against the flywheel by the mechanism. The clutch plate is then driven in rotation by the flywheel. Click on the clutch pedal to engage the clutch. The clutch plate transmits engine movement to the input shaft of the gearbox. In engaged position, all clutch components rotate with the engine. When the clutch is in clutch-released position, the diaphragm is compressed, the mobile plate disengages, and the clutch plate is released. The gearbox is now uncoupled from the engine.